kids, thanks for coming today. As you can see, we got a poll up. If you want to just hop onto that website real quick and give us your opinion based on that question.
Okay.
Alright. As I can see, a couple of you are already doing that. How do you provide access to your students with special needs? Do you think that they feel included in your classroom? So we have what? I would like a little bit more than that. By providing flexible options for students to pick. That's good, I like that one. His they, I don't know what that is, but I think that means have them be part of the general education classroom, and yes, they will feel included. That's exactly right. So, that was a probing question for you, so now I'm going to turn your attention to our objectives on the board here. We have students will be able to define 5 words by illustrating the concepts on a graphic organizer. The next one, students will demonstrate their knowledge of the 5 vocabulary words in a game of Kahoot. So we're playing a game today, guys. I know you're excited about that. Yeah, a little cheer.
Woo!
All right. So we have our guided notes in front of us. Guided notes in front of us. And we have the big questions, our focus questions of the day. How can we connect inclusion to our practice as teachers? And how can we use UDL, which you'll find out what that means later, to benefit all students? So we'll be answering these questions at the end, kind of just to keep your mind focused on these questions.
So we're going to go through and actually introduce some new vocabulary today, which will help us answer these big questions and understand these bigger concepts that we're going to need. So the first one we're going to start with is a disability. And I'm going to model for you here how we're going to go through the rest of our notes. So we're going to start with just defining the term. So here for disability I have any impairment, physical, mental, emotional, that interferes with our normal everyday life.
And this could be normal everyday life at home or in the classroom. That's kind of what we mean by that. Again, disability is any impairment, physical, mental, emotional, that interferes with normal everyday life. Disability.
And next we're going to go into talking about some examples and non-examples. These ones specifically are going to be as they are defined by IDEA 2004, which was in your reading last night. So an example for how IDEA 2004 would define a child with a disability would be a student with a learning disability that needs specialized reading instruction. That would be a student with a disability according to IDEA 2004. And then a non-example, something that would not be considered a disability as defined by IDEA 2004 would be a student with a broken leg that it needs to use the elevator.
This is a temporary disability. It's affecting their everyday life now, but maybe in a month it will not.
And then this next part here on the notes, what we have is the 13 categories outlined by IDEA 2004 that would qualify a student with disabilities.
Try to zoom that in for you.
Okay, so that was disability as defined by IDEA 2004.
So now we have the least restrictive environment, or the acronym LRE, least restrictive environment. So our definition for this is the best place for a specific student to learn. So this is where they're most comfortable, or where there's less distractions, or it'll promote growth. So the least restrictive environment, LRE, is the best place for a specific student to learn. So maybe a student with a disability. This is the best place for them to learn. Okay. All right. environment. So where do most students fall on the continuum? So we have this triangle here. Let's get this out of the way here. We have this triangle here. So our least restrictive environment would most likely be one where the student is in the general education classroom. General education classroom, and then so that is a least restrictive environment. They're with their peers. This is where we want them to be.
This is where most students with and without disabilities fall. This is the biggest part on that continuum. This is where most of those students are falling for their least restrictive environment.
And then we have the most restrictive is at home. So they're not with their peers. They're by themselves. They're not promoting growth with their peers. So most students fall on the continuum in the general education classroom. So that is where we would like to have every student. All right.
Our next term here we're going to define would be free appropriate public education, which we are going to refer to from now on as FAPE. FAPE stands for free appropriate public education. It's a major tenet of IDEA 2004, which was what outlined what, Vince? What did IDEA 2004 outline for us?
Didn't it outline most of the special education requirements that we have to follow?
Yes, but it also, in the beginning of today, it outlined for us some categories. What were those categories?
Oh, those 13 categories. So some of them is like cognitive impairment,
Right.
physical impairment.
Right.
Gosh, there were so many.
So
but
IDEA
those are two.
2004 outlined those 13 disability categories for us. And it also states in that act, it says that it has FAPE, the free appropriate public education. And that states that all students have the right to a free appropriate public education. And it really emphasizes that all students.
This is a zero reject. Little star here. Zero reject. Again, all students have the right to free, appropriate public education. FAPE. Okay. Moving on to this is where I'm gonna cut this out because I don't have something that I can fill in. Ah, there it is. Okay. And we're back. So we're moving on to our next word, which is inclusion. Inclusion. Vince, what do you think this means? Inclusion.
When I think of inclusion, I think of the feeling of being included.
Mhm.
Just like how the picture that you put up there shows, everybody
Yeah.
is included in that group.
Everyone's included. Everyone is included together, not separated. So what would an example of an inclusive classroom look like? What would it be?
A classroom where everybody is engaged and active
Mhm.
in the classroom. I would assume.
Yep, yeah, that, and maybe a student with a disability is not separated from their peers, from the students without a disability. So everyone is together in the classroom. So students with a disability are in the same classroom as their peers. Good. Can you give me an example of a non-example of an inclusive classroom? So one that is non-inclusive.
So a non-inclusive example would be exclusion. So maybe having some of those special ed students put into one classroom rather than in with their peers.
Good, good. So yeah, maybe all students with a disability separated from peers in another classroom. Good.
And
I like
we as
those.
teachers have to be, make a conscious effort to make sure we're not excluding them within our own classroom as well. Right, we wanna make sure that they're not just sitting off by themselves in the back corner of the room and we're just kind of avoiding them. They need to intermingle and be mixed in and, be provided those same opportunities to learn. That's the same as their non-disabled peers.
Good.
All right, so our last term here is UDL, which is a Universal Design for Learning. This refers to different ways to represent the information to students, so we can show them a PowerPoint, show them a movie, show them current events in the news as ways to get them engaged in our lesson and how we're presenting the information to them, but also allowing them to express their learning in different ways. So giving them options of, let's write a summary paragraph, let's draw a comic strip, let's take a test. All these things are different ways for them to express their learning. And it's just a way for them to gain this knowledge and the confidence in that topic area by allowing them to express it in different ways. So what are some examples that you think you could use UDL in your specific classroom, Vince?
Some ways that we can incorporate this is having maybe some multiple forms of representation, maybe presenting that material in different ways, either through PowerPoint or through a poll or Kahoot, or just using many different forms of showing your material that you're trying to get the students to learn.
Perfect. Different formats for presenting the information.
I also had one other idea about, UDL, and maybe having students, giving students the option to have multiple forms of expressing their knowledge,
Right.
not just through like an essay or through, I don't know, a quiz. Having them maybe put it on a poster, maybe have an exit ticket, an entry ticket, and have
Okay.
many different ways.
Right, different ways to assess that learning, right? It doesn't have to be so formal all the time. Good. And what would be a way that you would teach that would not be utilizing UDL? Something that we might want to avoid.
Well, maybe being less flexible. So, like, only offering an essay or only doing something one way rather than giving students an option and engaging them that way.
Right. Yep. Limiting them in their expression.
Right.
Alrighty, I want you guys to just underline these words for me. Representation, action and expression, engagement. All three of these make up UDL and what Ms. Darpino was talking about earlier, but I want you to emphasize that, because you guys need to know that. Alright, good. So that is all the notes we have for you today, but we do have a graphic organizer, as we said, in our objective. We want you to know these 5 words well enough to put it in a graphic organizer. So this is our connecting interaction to practice. So how the 4 terms surrounding inclusion, if you take a look at your graphic organizer, how they connect to inclusion. So we'll have you work in groups of 3 to 4 on this. Mr. Arpino and I will be walking around and helping you guys. So get started. Okay. Alrighty. All right. so I've been walking around. I see a couple of you guys are a little confused about this. So here is an example. Vince was so nice to let me share this of how we would like you to fill this out. So he's not quite done yet. He's almost there, but this is how we want you to do it. So remember I told you to underline those words. Vince knew them, so action and expression, representation, and the engagement for universal design for learning. So continue on with that. Yep.
All right, so it looks like most of the groups have finished up with all of this work. Really great job today remembering those words and learning those words. You can now use this as a study tool to help you study these words for the future. So I'll have you put that away now, and we'll get started on our closing activity here with the Kahoot quiz. So if I could get you all to take out your iPads now. If you do not have yours, you can work with a partner who does have theirs. And go ahead and join the game.
Alrighty, looks like we got the whole class here. All two of us.
Okay, ready? Which one of the following is not a disability as defined by IDEA 2004?
Alright.
Perfect. Broken leg is not a disability as defined by IDEA. What is the least restrictive environment for most students?
Least restrictive, remember. Oh, alright. So we got homeschooling as someone put. So that's going to be, if you remember that triangle, that's at the top. That's the most restrictive environment. So in this case, it would be the general education classroom. They're with all their peers, the other students. They don't feel like they're different. So this is where we want all students to be.
What does FAPE stand for?
Alright, everyone got that one.
Getting
Good.
that one.
Free.
Free and public education. Good.
On the same page.
As a gen ed teacher, you must do your best to make sure that every student is included. It's a tough question, but the answer here that we were looking for is included. We want to have an inclusive environment. Yes, we would like all of our students to be independent and smart and all those things, but as a general education teacher, our job is to really make sure that they're all included, especially those students with disabilities. What does UDL stand for?
Good.
Perfect.
Universal Design for Learning, UDL. Good. Alright, so that concludes our lesson today. We hope that you guys remember these words, and they will be on the next test and quiz. So, thank you. There's the bell. I'll see you guys tomorrow.
Bye.